Everybody, just back today doing I guess, tabletop comic update. I've actually got some news today just on the Marvel game, as well as I wanted to show this little piece that I was working on. I'll start with the piece this time. Quite happy with how he turned out. I showed him his face a bit last time. I haven't really done anything different with the face. What I mainly have worked on since last time was the scenery. I think I called it a hubcap last time in the video, which is funny how my brain just inserts words that are incorrect at times without me even thinking about it. But basically I sculpted a little sewer cap, and then I tried to paint it all rusty like they typically would be after many years. I've painted these bricks, like they came with a different they came nice and natural color, but I've colored this whole thing and then repainted it. I've got some soda cans in there just on the ground, like he's just basically creating a mess, like going through a wall on a side street. This is just a little fun project as I was thinking about all of this comic book stuff. It was just sort of an inspiration thing. I'm not planning on really using this in any game. Just mainly just did this just for fun. But yeah, I quite enjoyed it. It was great. So, one of the things that I wanted to just talk about, for those of you that are interested in the Marvel game, it was just released this morning. Depending on where in the world, maybe it was yesterday afternoon or something, I'm not sure, but I woke up this morning and the Marvel Universe Miniatures game by Night Models is now in the pre-order phase. You can get it on some select distributors in the world, but it's mainly being distributed direct at the moment. They say that it's going to be distributed by retailers, but I think it's just a few that have picked it up. It's the first day that's become available. Right now there are sales on the actual starter box. The starter boxes, like I mentioned, include a 36-page rulebook, 4 miniatures that are 35mm scale. And I think that might be it. I'm not sure. I don't think there's anything besides that. But they do have tokens, for each faction. It's Avengers, X-Men, and Galactic Guardians. They have a 3D template that you can buy, and then, like I said, the tokens, which I think the tokens are optional. The template may be optional too, but I did pick it up just because I thought it looked like, because it's a 3D template and fairly specific looking, I thought it might make sense to actually get that one. It's interesting. I've always wanted these miniatures, and I wouldn't say I went all out because I didn't get all 3 factions, but they also released some new minis. Each faction has an extra mini you can buy separately. I think last time we went through the different factions that are available that they've released. For the X-Men, it's Deadpool is the miniature you can get. For the Avengers, it's the Black Panther. And then for Galactic Guardians, it's Nova. And so I elected to get the Avengers and also X-Men. Now, it's funny because I like all 3 factions. If I had to pick one and say, like, which would be the one that I would typically get, I mean, it would automatically be Avengers, just because I read, a lot of Avengers stuff going way back, and it's just the characters I quite like, just for a very long time. The same actually kind of applies to X-Men, but I was just a bigger fan of Avengers. But to be honest, I actually preferred to get the X-Men starter for some reason. In the end, I ended up getting the X-Men starter. I think I just told you, yeah, the X-Men starter and the Avengers starter with the extra minis. I actually am more excited about the X-Men starter, and I think part of that might have to do with the fact that for tabletop gaming, just because you happen to like a character doesn't necessarily, in like the comic book or in books or things like that, doesn't necessarily mean they're the ones that you would want to play in a tabletop game. And that's kind of an interesting concept, in that, like, just because you like a character, like you identify with a character or you enjoy a story, doesn't mean that that's who you would like to be on the table, like, or play on the table in a game. For whatever reason, when I saw the X-Men and what they were doing with them, I actually thought, I think I would like this faction the best to play on the table. But in the end, I'm going to use both. Until villains are sort of released, I guess there'll just be scenarios just where you're potentially trying to fight each other, which I know happened in the comics too. Some people on the forums were a little bit down on the Black Panther sculpt. I think I'm going to kind of reserve my judgment until it comes in. I definitely wanted to get all the minis available for the Avengers at this time, and so I was going to get it either way. Deadpool, it's interesting because I got Deadpool for the same reason, but I never read Deadpool as a comic. It was after my time. I know a movie's coming out now. I really know nothing about the character at all, so I don't really have. I know he has a bit of a strong following at times. I know people are really excited about the movie and things, but I'm completely ignorant to the character for the most part. So I'm looking forward to that, and I do actually have some miniatures for the Spider-Man miniatures game that's a bit more specific and more like the Batman miniatures game that they make. And so for those of you that might be almost thoroughly confused, a lot of people kind of are, that are just casually observing these games coming up by Night Models. But then the Batman miniatures game has been out for quite some time now, and it's a faction-based street-level game where you command like a crew, and you have like, the star of your crew, maybe a villain, and maybe Batman or something like that. You have sort of sidekicks, which are somewhere in between, your grunt and your hero, and then you have like the grunts, and that's kind of the way it works. They were coming out with a Spider-Man miniatures game, and for all intents and purposes, it still shows that on the website is something that they're coming out with. I think because they didn't really advance the game too far, it was meant to be a tag-on to the Batman game. And then they announced this whole new game, the Marvel Universe Miniatures game, which is not compatible with the Batman Miniatures game. It uses different dice. It's completely on a different power level. I think a lot of people are quite wondering where this is all going to go. I'm kind of convinced that they have, definitely put their a lot of their eggs into the basket of this Marvel Universe Miniatures game, because there's actually its own rule book of 36 pages that's coming with the starter set. And so they've really seemed to invested quite a bit into this. So I'm enjoying that, and I'm going to be painting up the Spider-Man miniatures, and we'll see what happens with them. I'm hoping that at a minimum they get stats cards for the new game that they're announcing. So that's kind of what's going on with the comic book game stuff. Not a whole lot else. I ended up, one of the reasons I was able to purchase this, I put some money aside for this game as a purchase. It's kind of funny because I had a birthday recently, not that long ago, and I'm being 43 years old. I don't really get money from parents or anything like that anymore. It's funny as an adult, that works and all this stuff. But it was really interesting because I'm in a different country than my parents. And that's not completely an excuse in all cases, because this happened with my mother-in-law too, and I'll tell you the story, is that I essentially got cards from both my mother-in-law and my mother with money in them. And I looked at my wife just sort of flabbergasted, because I was like, that's just so strange, like, because we exchange gifts and things, and my mother-in-law lives 3 hours away, and we see her quite often, and my father-in-law as well, and but like, my parents live in another country, and so they do usually send a package with just something in it, a card or whatever. But so I ended up getting money, like, from both from both sides of the family, which is hilarious. And I just, knowing this was coming out, I just kind of put it on the side and said, okay, well, I'm just going to invest it in this game that's coming out, so I can, because I like the Marvel miniatures, I want to paint them up, and I've talked to you guys about that. So yeah, that's how I was able to fund this, to get 2 starter sets, 2 blisters, and the template. And so, yeah, looking forward to that. And so I'll be, when that comes in, I'll be painting those up in between everything else I'm doing. So I think that's a total of 10 miniatures right off the bat, and then another 3 I have to do that I painted for the Spider-Man game. So, you know, not nothing, but not an insurmountable amount of stuff to paint. So, okay, everybody. Well, that is it for the comic book update, and I'm looking forward to more this year, for sure, on this series, because this is something that I'm definitely excited about. Okay, talk to you guys later.